Bury a rusty nail next to your tomato. In 1 week, you won't recognize the plant. Here's why it works. This sounds like garden folklore from your great-grandmother's era. But what I'm about to show you is a technique so simple and so effective that it threatens a multi-billion-dollar fertilizer industry. We're talking about taking an ordinary rusty nail from your tool shed and burying it next to your struggling tomato plants. Within 7 days, those yellowing, sickly plants will transform into deep green powerhouses that look like they've been fed expensive commercial fertilizers. But here's the twist. This isn't some mystical garden magic. This is pure biochemistry, rooted in a scientific understanding that has been deliberately obscured by companies who profit from your plant problems. What you'll discover in the next few minutes will save you hundreds of dollars in fertilizers and chemicals. But more importantly, it will reconnect you with a farming wisdom that sustained our ancestors for thousands of years, before synthetic agriculture rewrote the rules of growing food. The secret lies in something called iron chlorosis, a condition that affects millions of tomato plants worldwide, but is rarely discussed in gardening magazines or agricultural extension programs. Your plants don't need more water or expensive nutrients. They need iron, but not just any iron. They need it in a specific form that their roots can actually absorb. And here's where that rusty nail becomes worth more than its weight in gold. The rust on that nail is iron oxide, a slow-release form of bioavailable iron that feeds directly into your plant's cellular machinery for producing chlorophyll. I first learned about this technique from an elderly farmer in rural Tennessee, a man named Earl, who had been growing prize-winning tomatoes for over 60 years. His plants were legendary in the county, massive dark green giants that produced tomatoes so perfect they looked like they came from a magazine. When I asked him his secret, he chuckled and pulled a rusty 10-penny nail from his pocket. "Son," he said, "this here nail is worth more than any bag of fertilizer you can buy. I've been using this trick since I was knee-high to a grasshopper. Learned it from my daddy, who learned it from his daddy." Earl's story seemed too simple to be true. How could a piece of rusty metal solve the complex nutritional needs of a living plant? But when I saw his tomato plants up close, I knew there had to be science behind this seemingly primitive method. These weren't just healthy plants. They were supernatural. Thick stems, dark green leaves without a hint of yellowing, and fruit clusters that defied everything I thought I knew about tomato production. The science behind Earl's rusty nail technique is actually quite sophisticated, though the application couldn't be simpler. Iron deficiency in plants, technically called iron chlorosis, occurs when plants can't access iron in the soil, despite the fact that iron is abundant in most soils. The problem isn't a lack of iron. It's that most soil iron is in forms that plant roots can't absorb. Iron needs to be in what chemists call the ferrous form, or Fe2+, to cross cell membranes and enter the plant's circulatory system. Commercial fertilizers try to solve this with iron chelates, synthetic molecules that supposedly make iron more available to plants. These products cost a fortune and work for only a short time before breaking down. But nature has a better solution. When iron metal rusts, it creates iron oxides that slowly dissolve in soil water, releasing exactly the form of iron that plant roots can grab onto and transport throughout the plant. The transformation happens at the cellular level, but the results are visible to the naked eye. Iron is essential for chlorophyll synthesis, the green pigment that captures sunlight and converts it to energy. Without adequate iron, plants can't produce enough chlorophyll, leading to the characteristic yellowing that makes tomato growers reach for expensive bottles of liquid fertilizer. But when iron becomes available in the right form, chlorophyll production kicks into overdrive, and yellowing leaves turn deep green within days. This process is so fundamental to plant biology that it's taught in every botany class. Yet somehow, it never makes it into practical gardening advice. Instead, we're sold complex fertilizer programs and soil amendments that treat symptoms rather than addressing the root cause. The rusty nail technique goes straight to the source, providing a steady, season-long supply of bioavailable iron for virtually no cost. Have you ever noticed your tomato plants turning yellow despite regular fertilizing? The technique itself is almost embarrassingly simple, which is probably why it's been dismissed by modern agriculture. You need an ordinary steel nail. Not galvanized, not stainless steel, just regular iron-rich steel that will rust. The size matters less than the composition, but a 10-penny nail or larger gives you more iron surface area. The nail should already be rusty, or you can encourage rust by leaving it outside in the weather for a few weeks. The placement is critical. Bury the nail about 10 to 15 centimeters from the base of your tomato plant, at a depth that puts it near the main root zone. Too close to the stem, and you risk damaging roots during installation. Too far away, and the iron won't reach the feeder roots efficiently. The nail should be completely buried, with just enough soil coverage to prevent it from being a safety hazard. The magic begins immediately, though you won't see results for several days. Soil moisture starts the oxidation process, dissolving tiny amounts of iron oxide from the nail's surface. These iron ions move through soil water toward the plant's roots, where they're absorbed by specialized transport proteins. Within 24 to 48 hours, iron levels in the plant's vascular system begin to climb. By day 3, if you know what to look for, you can see the first signs of improvement. The newest growth starts showing a deeper green color. The yellowing that may have been creeping up from lower leaves stops progressing. By day 5, the transformation becomes obvious to anyone. Leaves that were pale yellow-green turn rich dark green. The plant's entire posture changes as it stands taller and more robust. By the end of the first week, you're looking at a completely different plant. The contrast is so dramatic that neighbors will ask what expensive fertilizer you used. The tomatoes themselves benefit enormously from this iron boost. Higher chlorophyll levels mean more efficient photosynthesis, which translates to better fruit development, deeper flavor, and higher yields. The beauty of this system is its sustainability. Unlike liquid fertilizers that get washed away by rain or irrigation, the nail continues working all season long. Each time soil moisture contacts the metal, more iron becomes available. In regions with regular rainfall, this creates a perfect slow-release system that adapts to the plant's changing needs throughout the growing season. But here's where understanding your soil becomes crucial. This technique works spectacularly in alkaline or limestone soils, where iron is naturally locked up in unavailable forms. In these conditions, plants may be literally surrounded by iron they can't use, making the rusty nail a game changer. However, in naturally acidic soils, iron is usually already available, and adding more won't help yellow leaves that have other causes. The soil pH sweet spot for this technique is anywhere above 7.0. The higher the pH, the more dramatic the results. If you're gardening in clay soil or anywhere with limestone bedrock, your tomatoes are probably desperate for accessible iron. Coastal areas with shell-based soil also create the alkaline conditions where this method shines. If you're enjoying this garden secret, hit that subscribe button and give this video a like. It helps me share more of these forgotten techniques. Testing your soil pH is simple with inexpensive test strips available at any garden center. If your soil tests below 6.5, iron deficiency probably isn't your problem, and yellow leaves might indicate other issues like nitrogen deficiency or watering problems. But if you're dealing with alkaline soil and yellowing tomatoes, a rusty nail might be the simplest solution you'll ever implement. The economic implications of this technique are staggering when you consider the scale of the fertilizer industry. Americans spend over $15 billion annually on fertilizers, many of them designed to address problems that could be solved with scrap metal. A single rusty nail costs nothing and works better than products that sell for $20 per bottle. This isn't just about saving money. It's about understanding how plant nutrition actually works versus how it's marketed to us. The fertilizer industry has convinced gardeners that plant nutrition is incredibly complex, requiring precisely formulated products for every possible deficiency. In reality, many plant problems have simple solutions that don't require purchasing anything at all. The rusty nail technique also highlights the difference between synthetic and natural approaches to gardening. Synthetic iron chelates flood the soil with immediately available nutrients, creating a boom and bust cycle that can actually weaken plants long-term. The nail provides a steady, low-level supply that matches how plants evolved to obtain iron from their environment. Professional farmers have known about iron availability issues for decades, but their solutions tend toward the expensive and complicated. They inject iron chelates through irrigation systems, spray foliar iron fertilizers, or apply tons of sulfur to lower soil pH artificially. These approaches work, but require ongoing inputs and specialized equipment. The rusty nail requires no special tools, no measuring, no timing considerations, and no recurring costs. Once buried, it works automatically for the entire growing season and beyond. Many gardeners find that nails buried one year continue improving plant health for 2 or 3 subsequent seasons as they slowly dissolve into the soil. This longevity creates another economic advantage. While commercial iron fertilizers require multiple applications per season, costing $50 to $100 for a decent-sized garden, a handful of rusty nails from your junk drawer provides the same benefit for nothing. The math is so obvious, it makes you wonder why this information isn't widely shared. The answer, of course, is that there's no profit in teaching people to solve their problems with free materials. Garden centers make tremendous money selling fertilizers to treat iron chlorosis. Removing that revenue stream by promoting rusty nails would be financial suicide for retailers who depend on repeat customers buying expensive solutions to recurring problems. But the conspiracy goes deeper than simple profit motives. Modern agriculture has systematically devalued traditional knowledge in favor of technological solutions. Techniques passed down through generations of successful farmers are dismissed as unscientific unless they can be packaged and sold. The rusty nail method works perfectly, but it can't be patented, marketed, or turned into a recurring revenue stream. This pattern repeats throughout agriculture and gardening. Simple, effective solutions get buried while complex, expensive alternatives are promoted. Crop rotation gets replaced by synthetic fertilizers. Beneficial insects get replaced by pesticides. Natural soil building gets replaced by artificial amendments. Each substitution creates dependency and recurring sales. The irony is that these traditional methods often work better than their modern replacements. The rusty nail doesn't just provide iron, it provides iron in exactly the form and release pattern that plants prefer. No synthetic chelate can match the elegant simplicity of iron oxide slowly dissolving in soil water. Understanding this process also reveals why some expensive iron products fail to work as advertised. Many commercial iron fertilizers are designed to be fast-acting, flooding the soil with immediately available iron. But plants don't naturally encounter massive doses of any nutrient. They've evolved to use small, steady supplies over extended periods. The nail's slow release matches this evolutionary pattern perfectly. Regional variations in soil chemistry explain why this technique works dramatically in some areas and modestly in others. The American Southwest, with its alkaline caliche soils, is perfect territory for rusty nail treatments. The same is true for much of the Great Plains, where limestone bedrock creates chronically high pH conditions. Coastal areas with shell-based soils also provide ideal conditions for this method to shine. Conversely, gardeners in naturally acidic regions like the Pacific Northwest or southeastern pine forests may see little benefit from additional iron. Their soils already provide adequate bioavailable iron, and yellowing leaves usually indicate other issues. Understanding your local soil conditions helps target this technique where it will have maximum impact. The timing of nail installation can affect results, though the method is forgiving enough to work whenever you implement it. Early spring installation, before transplanting seedlings, gives the iron time to begin dissolving before plants need it most. But nails buried next to established plants showing iron deficiency symptoms will still produce dramatic improvements within a week. Multiple nails can be used for large or particularly hungry plants. Indeterminate tomato varieties, which grow continuously throughout the season, benefit from 2 or 3 nails spaced around their root zone. Determinate varieties, which have a more compact growth habit, usually do fine with a single nail placed strategically near their main root mass. The technique works for other iron-loving plants beyond tomatoes. Peppers, eggplants, and other nightshades respond similarly well. Many fruit trees, especially citrus and alkaline soils, show remarkable improvement with rusty nails buried around their drip lines. Even acid-loving plants like blueberries can benefit if they're struggling in unsuitable soil conditions. Safety considerations are minimal, but worth mentioning. Completely bury the nail to prevent injury from sharp edges. Choose locations where you won't accidentally hit the metal while cultivating around plants. If you're concerned about soil contamination, remember that iron is an essential nutrient for both plants and humans. You're adding something beneficial, not harmful. The visual transformation that occurs with iron-deficient plants is so dramatic that many gardeners become believers after their first trial. Pale, sickly-looking tomatoes turn into deep green powerhouses within a week. The change is so obvious that it convinces even the most skeptical observers that something significant has happened. This rapid improvement creates a teaching opportunity for understanding plant nutrition in general. Most fertilizer deficiencies develop gradually and resolve gradually. Iron deficiency is different. It creates obvious symptoms quickly and responds to treatment just as quickly. This makes it an ideal demonstration of how targeted nutrition can transform plant health. The rusty nail technique also serves as a gateway to understanding soil chemistry more broadly. Gardeners who succeed with this method often become curious about other soil interactions. They start testing pH, learning about nutrient availability, and questioning why they've been buying so many products to solve problems that nature handles elegantly. This curiosity often leads to broader adoption of sustainable gardening practices. Once you've seen how effectively a piece of scrap metal can solve a major plant problem, you start wondering what other simple solutions have been overlooked in favor of commercial products. The nail becomes a symbol of garden self-sufficiency and natural problem-solving. Educational institutions rarely teach these practical applications of soil science, focusing instead on theoretical knowledge that doesn't easily translate to real-world gardening. Agricultural extension programs occasionally mention iron availability issues, but typically recommend commercial solutions rather than exploring traditional alternatives. This gap between academic knowledge and practical application keeps useful techniques like the rusty nail method relegated to folklore rather than mainstream gardening advice. Farmers and gardeners who discover these methods often feel like they've stumbled onto secret knowledge that should be more widely shared. The resistance to promoting such simple solutions reflects broader trends in how we approach problem-solving in modern society. Complex problems are assumed to require complex solutions, and simple answers are viewed with suspicion. But agriculture was built on simple observations about what works, not elaborate theories about why it should work. Earl's tomatoes didn't need scientific explanation to be superior to his neighbor's crops. The rusty nail didn't require peer-reviewed studies to provide iron to hungry plants. Results spoke louder than theories, and successful harvests mattered more than understanding the molecular mechanisms involved. Modern gardening has lost some of this practical wisdom in favor of product-driven solutions. We've been taught to reach for our wallets rather than our toolboxes when plants show stress symptoms. The rusty nail method reminds us that effective solutions are often hiding in plain sight, waiting to be rediscovered by gardeners willing to think outside the commercial box. The success of this technique in your own garden will depend partly on soil conditions and partly on your willingness to trust a method that seems too simple to work. But thousands of gardeners who've tried it report similar results. dramatic improvements in plant color and vigor within a week of installation. Weather patterns affect how quickly the nail begins working. Consistent soil moisture speeds iron dissolution and transport to plant roots. Dry conditions slow the process but don't prevent it. The iron will still become available when regular watering or rainfall resumes. This natural regulation prevents over-fertilization while ensuring steady nutrition throughout the growing season. Organic gardening principles align perfectly with the rusty nail approach. You're adding nothing synthetic or harmful to your soil, just providing iron in a form that mimics natural mineral weathering. The slow release prevents the boom and bust nutrition cycles that can disrupt soil biology and plant health. The psychological satisfaction of solving plant problems with found materials rather than purchased products can't be understated. There's something deeply satisfying about using a discarded nail to create thriving plants. It connects us to generations of resourceful gardeners who solved problems with ingenuity rather than spending money. This resourcefulness becomes particularly valuable during economic uncertainty when gardening budgets get squeezed. The rusty nail technique costs nothing and works better than expensive alternatives. It's recession-proof nutrition that doesn't depend on supply chains or retail availability. Teaching children about the rusty nail method provides valuable lessons about plant biology, soil chemistry, and creative problem solving. Kids are often amazed that something as simple as a piece of metal can help plants grow better. It demystifies gardening and shows them that nature responds to understanding, not just products. The technique also demonstrates the importance of observation in gardening. Noticing yellowing leaves, understanding what causes them, and implementing targeted solutions. These skills matter more than following generic fertilizer schedules. The rusty nail succeeds because it addresses a specific problem with a specific solution. Commercial agriculture has moved away from this kind of targeted approach in favor of blanket applications of multiple fertilizers, whether plants need them or not. This shotgun approach is expensive and often ineffective, but it's easier to implement on large scales than observing individual plant needs and responding appropriately. Home gardeners have the luxury of paying attention to individual plants and responding to their specific requirements. The rusty nail technique exemplifies this personalized approach, identifying iron deficiency symptoms and providing exactly what the plant needs, when it needs it, in a form it can use effectively. The environmental benefits of this approach extend beyond individual gardens. Reducing dependence on manufactured fertilizers means less energy consumption, less packaging waste, and fewer synthetic chemicals entering soil and water systems. Multiplied across millions of home gardens, these small changes add up to significant environmental impact. The circular economy principles embedded in using waste materials for garden improvement could revolutionize how we think about gardening inputs. Instead of buying new products, we could be repurposing discarded materials to solve plant problems. Rusty nails are just the beginning. Other metal scraps, organic wastes, and recycled materials could all play roles in sustainable garden nutrition. This shift in thinking requires overcoming decades of conditioning that equates garden success with product purchases. The fertilizer industry has invested heavily in creating the perception that good gardening requires buying the right products. Breaking free from this mindset opens up possibilities for more creative, sustainable, and economical approaches to plant nutrition. The rusty nail serves as proof that these alternative approaches can work better than commercial products while costing nothing. It's a concrete example that challenges the assumption that expensive equals effective in garden management. Have you tried unconventional methods to improve your plants? Share your experiences in the comments below. I love hearing about creative gardening solutions that break the rules. If this technique opened your eyes to possibilities you hadn't considered, please subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. Your support helps spread awareness of these simple but effective gardening methods that can save money while improving results. Together, we can rediscover the wisdom that sustained successful gardeners long before the fertilizer industry convinced us we needed to buy our way to garden success.